Let's talk about your priorities. If you do win the elections in February and you're sworn into office come May 29th, what are your priorities?
Security and economic recovery to accelerated development to get Nigeria employed and get inflation down. Monetary policy needs to be changed. Subsidy needs to be decided upon and removed.
What were your thoughts? Take me back to 2022 and 2023 campaign period around President Tinubu's campaign mantra of renewed hope agenda. Can you recollect? What are your thoughts about that renewed hope agenda 2 years ago or thereabout?
Well, our thoughts were that President Tinubu's incoming administration then will actually be much more different in terms of fiscal policies, handling the economy in such a way that it will actually engender hope, coming from Nigeria's largest economic city, Lagos. And then, of course, having seen what had been done previously, I mean, there was that enthusiasm that the Nigerian economy will actually move much more better than what the Buhari administration had done. But of course, what we've seen at the moment is a situation of missed deadlines for some of the things that had been outlined in the principal document that was used to campaign for this presidency, and which is the Renewed Hope Agenda. Campaign policy that was put in place, and of course, eventually that the party adopted from its candidate, then candidate Bola Tinubu. And if you look at the dashboard of the current federal government right now, you see that there have been lots of missed deadlines in terms of some very principal policies that they had outlined that they were going to actually have. And of course, it also questions the sort of policy formulation and advice that the president seems to be getting. And then, of course, in terms of governance, there had been lots of thrust in the administration that the Orensoye report will be implemented, but that hasn't been implemented. And the government's decision to actually cut down on the cost of governance and corruption, it hasn't achieved so much there.
Yes, so 2 years on, Sumner, would you say that there is a connection between that Renewed Hope Agenda campaign and what the president's socio-economic policies and actions and even comments had been over the last 2 years?
Well, just for a very few in the cabinet. There are a lot of deadwoods in the cabinet, if I must use that word, and it beggars belief that this is the largest cabinet that we've ever had in Nigeria's history. And some ministers seem to be sleeping on duty, and we just really don't know what exactly might have been going wrong. And then in terms of attracting investments into the country, we've seen a major challenge. The FDI into the country has been pretty not so sufficient. And then, of course, we've also had issues of lots of loans being collected by this administration, and there are a lot of Nigerians are not connecting with some of the loans that have been taken. And people are beginning to question, okay, these loans that have been taken, where exactly are you deploying them to? And as a result of that, we are seeing, people beginning to ask questions. And then, of course, its appetite for increasing taxation has actually countered what it said it was going to do. And Bosin, I'm just going to read what it said about tax reform in the Renewed Hope document. It said, during times of economic weakness, increasing taxation is counterproductive. Higher taxes drain an already weakened private sector, inviting possible economic contraction and higher unemployment. But the government went ahead to increase taxes. So at what point in time did President Tinubu change from what he had said as candidate Tinubu? Because when he was candidate Tinubu, he has said that what we needed to do was to widen the tax net, not to increase it. But then you now see these electricity tariffs being increased, several tariffs here and there, and a lot of people, seem to be complaining. The VAT, at some point was being proposed to be about 12% to 15% and all of that until people had to. And then, of course, we've also seen the government bringing in these tax reform bills to create the Nigerian Revenue Service and all of that. Yes, to ensure that all collection of taxes by the federal government are taken from one source. Yeah, there's been some sort of reforms there, but of course there's been some challenge. And then the issue of the Nigeria First policy, it looks like they are just going through this document and saying it now, and they had to bring this policy because in their campaign document, this same document, they talked about the issues of import substitution. And I think the president must be he must be commended very well for deciding to take on this to ensure that everything that we'll buy, it will be Nigeria first. then before others. But then the opposition is asking him to start even with his own vehicles. Of course, you would have heard Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, the PDP presidential candidate in the 2023 elections, and the official opposition leader asking President Tinubu to start with himself, with the vehicles and all of that, and see how we can actually make this policy work.
So I want to start with the same question. 2 years on, what are your thoughts about this Bola Tinubu's administration or agenda of renewed hope? Has it been about renewed hope or renewed suffering? 2 years on, is Bola Tinubu a success or a failure? Why? If you think he's been a success, why has it been a success 2 years on? If you think he's been a failure, why has it been a failure 2 years on? Are we enjoying renewed hope or are we enjoying renewed suffering in Nigeria? So what are your thoughts about security? What are your thoughts about his monetary policies? What are your thoughts about economic growth? Has it been accelerated, or is it the fact that the economy has shrunk as well again because of those policies? What about foreign direct investment? Because it is little or nothing anyway. So would you say 2 years on, Bola Tinubu has demarketed Nigeria and Buhari did 2 years on? We're going to answer these questions, but before we break them down, if you're meeting this content for the first time, like, share, and subscribe. And also, if you've been following us and you've not subscribed, please do so. And also watch this to the end and share this content with others. I played the first one from BBC just to give you insight into what Bola Tinubu's agenda was in 2023. The first one he said was security. The second was economic recovery to accelerated development. The third one is to get Nigerians employed, get them back into work. The other part is to get inflation down. And then he talked about the monetary policies needs to be looked and changed. And then the fifth one is, or the sixth one, he says subsidy needs to be looked at and then removed. Obviously, he removed subsidy, and he said it was a great idea that came into his head, and that plunged Nigeria into economic recession again. But the first question is, has he succeeded in dealing with security, or security has it gotten worse? Okay, let me rephrase it. Has Bola Tinubu been able to deal with security, or security has gotten worse? What about economic recovery? Have we recovered economically, or Nigeria has gotten worse and the economy has shrunk as well again? Have Nigerians lost their jobs, or more Nigerians are back into work? What do you say about all of these questions? Because this is how you assess a government. You know, on this channel, we've talked about the kind of changes we want to see in our country and why we need to work hard to get it. Knowing the fact that the people who plunged us into this economic situation would not bring us out. I mean, the price of food is something else. The price of water in the market. If you go to the market today, you'll see all sorts. People are struggling. People cannot afford basic things. So that's why I'm asking you all these questions, because these are the parameters, these are the metrics which you use to decide whether or not the government is being successful. For example, take the Orasanye report. I don't know if you know anything about that, but it's one that says how to shrink the government, because there are a lot of parastatals that don't need to be in existence. You can shrink them into one, cut down the number of parastatals that we have, shrink them into one, and then, make government more viable. But this government has the biggest cabinet. And as someone has said, we have a lot of dead woods. That just means that we have a lot of people in the Bola Tinubu's cabinet doing absolutely nothing, just sucking up funds. You understand? So let's look at the monetary policies. What can we make of it? We are borrowing more and we're doing less with what we're borrowing the money with. I've done a video on this previously before, but because when I saw this interview with some now on IRRIs, I thought to just do it again, just to reemphasize this. The economy has shrunk. Policies are not working. And he talked about this. He says the fiscal policy to engender hope. These policies that they've done to engender, has it engendered hope, or is actually taking hope over people? I know of Nigerians trying to run away from the country because it's just not working. The price of goods and services has skyrocketed. Taxes. So the funny thing is that about the tax, he understood that if he increased tax, it would burden people, but he went ahead and did it anyway. That's just to let you understand how these advices are coming. So when Hakim Baba Ahmed, that his brother said that he does not know who's advising Bola Tinubu, this is exactly what he meant. You understood that the taxes, if you increase it, will cause the economy to shrink. But you went ahead and did it anyway and burdened the people. Data has gone up. The price of data, VAT is, I mean, that's another thing. I think they left out. But the price of electricity tariff, data tariff, your phone has gone up. So we have a lot of deadwoods working in the cabinet. And then you were wondering why things are not working, why we're not getting security done, why we're not getting the economy moving in the right direction. And I've said it before, I do not believe that Bola Tinubu has the capacity to move Nigeria forward. And if you look at that in the light of the foreign direct investment, who is going to come and invest in Nigeria when they know that the presidency is actually not in the right direction, when they understood that they've not been able to deal with security, when they also understand that there's a lot of clouds surrounding this current president? It's a cloud of corruption and lack of identity, who this real person really is. So how many foreign direct investment would you get, apart from the ones who are trying to take advantage of the nation, knowing that the government will give a lot of incentives to bring them in, even though it's against the advantage of the country? Talk about loans. Lots of loans, phantom projects. We're borrowing, we cannot see what we're using the money for. So that's why I'm asking you all of these questions. 2 years on, has Bola Tinubu been a success or has it been a failure? Our monetary policies are not working. The economic policies are not working. They're all bad. Nigerians, there are more Nigerians in multidimensional poverty 2 years on since Bola Tinubu took on to become the president. I'm going to ask you the question. Has Bola Tinubu been a success or has it been a failure? For all of those who want to get Bola Tinubu out of power 2027, why do you want to get him out of power? Is it because he's been a failure based on all of these parameters, these things that he said were his priorities? Has he been able to meet them? I mean, the news recently says that he's been able to pay the 2019 COVID fund that we borrowed, which came up to about $3 point something billion. Again, we wonder what they use the COVID fund for anyway. Somebody stole part of it, but yes, we're having to pay those, but there's still the interest that needs to be paid every month until it is offset. So would you say that's a gain or that's a win for him? This Nigeria First policy that they're talking about, how can you implement a Nigerian First policy when the government itself, the government itself is buying, it cannot buy from innocent motors, it's buying from the likes of BMW and on the other foreign brands, but it cannot do the same thing. How can Nigerian First policy work when there's no light, when there's corruption? When our judiciary is corrupt, this is why we don't get foreign direct investment, because the minister of FCT can wake up and see somebody's land and there's nothing they can do. If they take it to court, they've bought the court over. So how will foreigners decide to come and invest their money directly within Nigeria when they know that the system is corrupt? Again, like I said, the system that brought Bola Tinubu in is a corrupt system, and that cloud is all over him. His identity as a person is filled with so much dark cloud that people cannot really tell who this real person is. And that's the face of our nation, the chief marketer of our country. And that's why when somebody asked Dele Faratimi saying that it was the market in Nigeria, he said, how? The world can see for themselves. They don't look at Nigeria with the same spectrum with which we look at Nigeria from. They see us from a different light. So when you have the people who are in charge of governance being corrupt, what you have is that you have a downturn in the economy. And Nigeria is constantly going back into recession. Look at the amount of killings happening in the northeast, northwest, in the middle belt. And the government cannot do anything about that. And then you want foreign direct investment in there. People are being killed and their lands are seized. Why will I come and invest if I'm a foreigner, knowing the fact that if my workers are working in there, they could kill them to seize their land and I have to pay their families to sort that out? So I'm asking you 2 years on, what can you say if you're grading this Bola Tinubu administration? Would you say it has been a success or would you say it's a total abysmal failure? This renewed hope agenda, has it brought us new hope or renewed hope, or has it brought us renewed suffering? This is one thing that one of those P Square brothers said, is renewed hope or renewed, he said it was going to be renewed suffering. Do you understand? So it has been renewed suffering to a lot of other Nigerians, even the wherewithal are now feeling the pinch and the pains of this economy. Because when the policies are wrong, everyone suffers. Again, let me now divert quickly to 2027. I've often said it on this channel, 2027 is the fight for the soul of our country. Let's don't take it lightly. Election have consequences, so make sure you galvanize everybody else. I'm doing my bit by doing this content, galvanize other people to be part of it. 2027, don't take it for granted. There's serious urgency in getting Nigeria to work. And we need to get rid of all these deadwoods and deadweights in our government parastatal, in our House of Assembly, state and federal alike, even all the way to local government. We need to get those ones who cannot do the job out of the way and get people to work. All of our infrastructures failed. All of our public infrastructure has failed, and we need to get the right people in. So leave your thought in the comment section. Again, if you're meeting this content for the first time, like, share, and subscribe. And also, if you've been following us and you've not subscribed, please do so. As always, I will catch you up in the next video. God bless you. Bye-bye for now.